stare into the mirror, what stares back?
Hi, I'm new, 20-year-old female, and I just joined this subreddit and thought I would start off by sharing the only weird experience I've had. This took place back when I was 15 or 16, at the house my family used to live at. I guess I should mention that the house was right next to some woods, where unclaimed prisoners from a nearby old prison would be buried. I never had too crazy moments in the house, except for one time that really spooked me. Once in a while, I would hear a sort of whispery woman's voice call my name, but I sort of would always brush it off as my imagination or my mind playing tricks on me. It was a nice house and I felt safe there. But at the same time, it was the sort of house that if you turn the lights off by the stairs, you'd probably want to dash back up really fast. Sort of had an unfeeling here and there, but not all the time. At this time, an aunt was living in our basement. I was close with her and would often sleep with her in the basement, just because she liked the company down there. And we would watch movies and shows together at night a lot. This happened years ago, so I don't remember if it was daytime or evening, but the lights were dimmed in the basement because I had been napping with my aunt on her bed. I woke up and noticed my aunt was no longer in the bed next to me. So I looked up and noticed a woman standing in front of a mirror. The mirror was on the wall facing the bed, but not directly in front of the bed. The woman was brushing her hair. Her hair was long and dark. My aunt sort of has long dark hair, so I originally thought it was her. But I almost immediately knew that something was off, as the hair was a completely different texture than hers, and just had a weird feeling to it. The figure did look shadowy, but I thought it was just because the lights were dimmed. In the same moment, I noticed it wasn't just the same as my aunt's hair. I saw the reflection in the mirror, which really spooked me at the time. I don't know how to explain it, but the woman didn't have a face. It was sort of distorted. Then, I quickly ducked my head under the sheets, hoping that I was just dreaming, and called for my aunt. She hurried over and I looked back, and nothing was there. I told my aunt what I saw, but she assured me I was just dreaming. However, I was so confident that I wasn't dreaming because I was totally conscious. I could move freely, and never had a waking up moment later, so I know I was awake that whole time. As the years went by, I convinced myself that it was really a dream, or just my imagination, considering I never saw her again, except for the occasional hearing the call of my name.
So, my mum has this full stand mirror that my grandpa made her when she was a teen. She has had it forever basically, and is super attached to it. I, on the other hand, am terrified of it and hate being near it. I often have unexplained experiences involving this mirror, like seeing things in it, dark, heavy feelings in the room that it sits in, etc. Well, recently I had a baby, and he's 9 months now, crawling, learning, all that tiring stuff that babies do. My mum lets me come over to take naps in her room while she watches my little one, which helps a lot, but her mirror is in her room. The first time I took her up on the offer, I had a dream about a little girl ghost that kept showing herself to me, then running away. I woke all groggy and weird and very drained. I couldn't really explain why I was dreaming about her, or if she was real or just my imagination. I eventually just said whatever and left it at that. The second time, Not much happened other than the fact that I just could not wake up. My body felt like a ton of bricks, and my limbs wouldn't follow any direction my brain sent their way. I got up at some point, but only because I could hear my son downstairs crying. The last time was the craziest of all. No dreams. I slept only an hour and a half, and everything that happened was just crazy to me. The ghostly activity actually started before I went to nap. I had taken my son upstairs to nap in his playpen, which is placed right in front of that mirror, and when I laid him down and stood up to leave, I heard whispering, but couldn't make out any words. I shrugged it off, then went back downstairs. I was chilling on the couch when I started hearing whispering again. I tried ignoring it because honestly, I didn't feel threatened in any way, and just kept playing around on my phone. After a while of that, I started hearing someone walking around upstairs. Not my son, as he couldn't walk yet, and was in a playpen, so it couldn't have been him. Obviously, I was a little shaken up, but still was gonna ignore it. Then I noticed his toy dinosaur thing lighting up. There's a big red button on top of its head that lights up when pressed. Normally, it goes off for a little while after it gets pressed, but this was way after my son was playing with it. And it was like it was just being pressed over and over. The preset sayings would never come all the way through, just kept going on like the first words or so. Thought that was creepy and I started to get uneasy. A little bit after that, I decided to go upstairs and take a nap as well. When I get into the room, I get that familiar feeling of uneasiness the mirror gives me, and I side glanced it and then just tried to ignore it. My little one was asleep and safe, so I wasn't worried about him. I crawled into bed and was on my phone for a couple of more minutes when I started hearing the wordless whispers again. I ignored them again and tried falling asleep, but it felt like I was trapped between being awake and falling asleep. During that time, I heard all sorts of creaking sounds, walking, etc. At one point, it sounded like someone was rubbing their hand really fast across the blanket or sheets, like a sound. Eventually, I fell asleep, and like I said, was only asleep for an hour and a half. But an hour into my nap, my brother got home. He's 11, and came upstairs because he heard my baby. He was quiet, barely making any noise, but when he said something to my little one in a whisper, I woke up and got startled. After reassuring me that it was him and not some ghost person stalking me, he took my baby downstairs and let me rest a little longer. So I set my alarm for 30 minutes longer and fell back asleep. But instead of my alarm waking me up, I woke 6 minutes early, and as I was opening my eyes, all I could see all over the walls were words. They were written very messily and I couldn't make anything out at all. But it was all I could see for what felt like a long time, but was really only a minute or so. When I turned my phone on to check the time, the words went away, but I was definitely on edge and I was shaking. I tried to take a moment to calm down, but in the vanity mirror, which was looking towards the other mirror, something shifted and flew across it. I jumped up and got the hell out of there. When I told my mum, she just laughed, and my hubby made fun of me for always getting into these crazy ghostly situations. But I just came over to have a good time and relax, not be spooked by some crazy ghost. Anyways, I wanted to note that for the majority of the experience, I was alone with my son. It all started happening once my mum left to go do some Uber Eats deliveries, and when I woke up the second time, my brother and my son were downstairs playing. If you are able to read this whole thing, let me know what you think. Am I just crazy? Summer of '03, we had been living in our new home in Voorhees, New Jersey. My cousins from Belgium had come to visit. It was about 10 p.m. and we had been in my room watching a Disney Channel movie and eating snacks. The younger girls, my sister and my younger cousin, had fallen asleep, so my older cousin, MJ, and I decided to go to the den where the boys were, my little bro Len and two cousins Ned and Jay. My bedroom was pretty big and had a huge closet with sliding mirror doors on the side where the door to my bedroom was located. In between the closet and the door was a bookshelf. Facing the door was my queen-sized bunk bed that was placed with the sides facing the windows, looking out towards the front of the house and the lake. There was a desk and a computer against the wall between the bed and the mirror closet. The television was on the wall opposite to the desk. There was a library nook that could be seen from the bed that bent off from the wall where the TV was. When you opened the door to the room, you could see the bed in its entirety, the television and the desk, the side of the bookshelf, but not the mirror. There was a huge light in the middle of the room, in the ceiling, and a lamp next to the bed and one on the desk. My cousin MJ and I were cleaning up all the food and mess and bringing them downstairs. She told me to go back up and check if anything was left in the room. I went up to check and saw nothing. I picked up the pillows on the floor and put them in the library nook in my room. I started walking towards the door when I noticed a light beam in the mirror coming from what I thought was a car outside. I kept walking towards the door and closed it. Right next to my room was the steps to downstairs on the right-hand side. I make it only 2 steps and hear my little sister, that is 5, scream a blood-curdling scream. She keeps screaming and yelling for my mum. My mum runs to the bottom of the steps and looks up at me and asks what is wrong and what I did to my sister. I say I didn't do anything, she just started screaming. And my mum asks me why I didn't check. I couldn't explain to my mum that as soon as my sister started screaming, my whole body felt like it had been zapped. I was holding onto the railing and I swear I felt like I'd been electrocuted or something. My mum pushes past me and opens the door. I go back up 2 steps and I can see into the room my mum walking up to my sister on her bed. Next to her is my younger sister now, and she is still dead asleep. The room is lit up and my sister is pointing and screaming. My mum turns to the mirror and her face turns pale. She tells my sister not to look, and it is nothing. I'm confused at the whole thing, from my view in the hallway looking through the open door. I walk a step into my room. My hairs go up. My sister is still screaming bloody murder. My mum is embracing her and they are huddled together. My cousin is still dead asleep. Something inside me is telling me, "You are so stupid. You can't see it. You can't see what is wrong." There is a cognitive dissonance happening in my brain. Then all of a sudden I notice it. The lamp next to the bed is off. The lamp on the desk is off. The lamp overhead is off. When Mum opened the door, the room was lit. I had never turned on the light, and yet my whole room is lit. Then I notice it coming slowly from the side, like it is sliding through. It is very bright but not blinding. I start turning to look at it, but stop. When it is halfway between my peripheral and my line of sight, there is a giant orb of light hovering in my room, coming from the mirror. It is about the same size as a single-person sofa. I then notice it is not the fact that it is an orb of light that is frightening. The light has a face, a humanoid face. It looks like those mannequin heads that girls put wigs on. The light head starts turning for me, and I feel it is about to speak or say something. I have this irrational fear that my mum will blame this on me, and that she will know. I have no idea what it is. I didn't want her to know, but I feel the light is here for me. I turn and book it out of my room. This all happens in less than 5 seconds. My older cousin, MJ, is on the steps, already seeing what the fuss is about. She asks me what's wrong. I can't answer. She opens the door and says, "What the fuck?" The light disappears. I see this all from halfway down the steps, looking up towards the hallway. My mum tells my cousin to get Now, and they carry the girls downstairs. Now wakes up halfway down the steps, asking why she's been carried out. My sister is still screaming and crying. All 3 boys come from the den and we go to the living room. While my mum is processing everything, the boys ask what happened, I stand there silent, hearing my heart beating in my chest, and I am frozen. My mum tells them what she saw, and the boys bolt upstairs to my mum's protest. I stand there and my mum says, "Those aliens you saw were real, weren't they?" I'm confused. I tell her, "What are you talking about? I never have seen an alien in my entire life." She says, "When your other cousin had visited 4 years ago, it comes back like a flash, the UFO." I told her it wasn't aliens, it was just a UFO. I thought I dreamt that or something. She said, "No, you didn't." I went and got my diary from my room while the boys were still in there looking for the light man. I brought it downstairs and sure enough I wrote about it. My mum called the boys down and asked my brother to tell her about the UFO. He too looked confused. Then you could see him remember, and he said his account, it matched with what I had wrote in my diary. She called my uncle the next day and asked to speak to my cousin from that time, and he also had forgotten and thought it was a dream, then retold his memory and it matched to what we wrote down. I don't think the face of light or the light man and the UFO are related. I do think I bring strange things around, as does my little bro and some of my cousins. This is a real story and really happened. My little brother is now an accountant and highly religious and hates talking about all this stuff. But we call each other when we have weird dreams. My little sister basically went crazy and has had 4 commitments and is a hot mess. I have traveled the world and have a good job and graduated with 2 degrees and with honors, but strange things have not stopped happening to any of us. They just aren't as frequent. I am usually known for having a highly logical and realistic approach towards life. Hence, I was against comprehending the whole ghosts, paranormal, and supernatural experience. But ever since this occurred, I have remained silent and neutral in the whole debate, attempting to observe, read, and learn more. The room where this happened was previously used by my late grandmother, who had passed away around 6 months before this incident. It is important to visualize the room to understand the incident completely. The room was of a rectangular cross-section, with the entrance being in the smaller sided one, in one of the corners. Right in front of the entrance, immediately, was an antique wooden dressing room section, comprising of an old mirror and plank, and a wooden cupboard which had mirrors attached to its doors. A double cot bed was placed right in front of these 2. I like sleeping with minimal light and doors closed. I used to sleep facing the mirror on the cupboard, on the right side of the bed. I was in a deep sleep when suddenly around 3:30 a.m. I got up with my heartbeat pumping high and me sweating profusely. I was feeling feverish and weak. It was an extremely unnatural vibe. These things didn't make much sense to me. I tried to calm myself down, checked the time, and decided to go back to sleep. This whole experience was around 8 to 10 seconds. Now is when things got extremely bizarre. Right before I closed my eyes, in that split second, I could see something in the mirror, the one attached to the cupboard right opposite to me. At this moment, my heartbeat jumped out of bounds. I could feel my sweat dropping down, my mind going insane by this. As I don't believe in such things, I exploded in my head, questioning everything. Something was hovering right above me with its hands inside my head. It was made up of bones, with its head looking like that of an alien organism, with weird facial hair over an unnatural skull structure. The face was very disfigured, almost insect type, and it was hovering in ragged, grey-coloured clothing. I had to see it again just to make myself sure that I wasn't just paranoid or insane. So, after 2-3 seconds of panic, I open my eyes and look in the mirror, and I find it still above me, with its hands deep inside my head. It was doing something. The moment it noticed me watching in the mirror, It started moving along the edge towards the dark corner, which was adjacent to the entrance. Now I turn to my left and see there's nothing. I turn to the cupboard mirror and I see it's hovering away. Turn back to the left, there's nothing. Turn to the dressing table mirror again. I could clearly see it hovering towards the corner of the room, whilst I couldn't see the same when I turned my head. By this time I was shell-shocked, goosebumps all over, in a complete state of panic and paranoia, moving my head left and straight repeatedly as I watched it hover to the corner of the room and vanish into the air. At this point, I couldn't control or calm myself as I had attempted to go about it with logic. It just didn't make any sense. I saw that thing clearly inside the mirrors, while I didn't see anything outside of them. I turned on the lights and just stayed up, Googling about such experiences, trying to get myself out of panic and shock. It took me weeks to get myself sleeping normally. I haven't faced any such experiences before this, and since then. I am open to any sort of explanations to answer my experience, as I couldn't find any solid, concluding answer in my research. Hello watchers and listeners. If you enjoyed that video, please hit the like button, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. A big thank you to Lady Spookaria for joining me on this one. A link to her channel will be in the description below. I suggest you go over and check out her channel because she has a ton of great content. Many thanks to all the Reddit users who allowed me to use their stories. Links, as always, are in the description. If you have any story you would like to share on my channel, please send them to my email, which is also in the description below. As always, many thanks to everyone who continues to support me. I really do appreciate it. Stay safe.